In Victoria, the rush was on today. Hubs were swamped and booking sites jammed as thousands of Victorians aged 16 to 39 tried their luck at securing a Pfizer vaccine at state-run clinics. Here are the main numbers of the outbreak. Of the 45 new cases, more than a third were out in the community while infectious. There are 9 new mystery cases, and the Shepparton cluster has grown to 50. That community is tonight in crisis, with almost a third of its residents isolating, and there are calls for a state of emergency to be declared. As vaccination uptake surged in the city, the outbreak in Shepparton has taken a turn for the worse.
Shepparton is struggling. As the outbreak there grows to 50 cases, a lack of staff means supermarkets have cut back on opening hours and deliveries and can't meet demand.
We're hearing about a lot of people that were hungry. About a third of our community is in lockdown, and a lot of those are people who would normally be in the workforce and are able to care for themselves. So all of a sudden, a whole lot of people are vulnerable.
But there is help on the way. These volunteers are delivering essential goods to residents, and healthcare workers have been called in to replace the hundreds that are furloughed, as well as 50 ADF members to help with testing.
We'll work through all of those other issues with council, with industry, and make sure that the people of Shepparton get through this very challenging time.
There's still positive cases that are being uncovered. The exposure sites are going to continue to rise.
Nearly 20,000 residents are currently in isolation, mainly as a result of big schools recording cases. Across the state, the government set a target to get all Year 12 students vaccinated by the time exams start in October.
If there are ways that we can support students to get vaccinated, we will.
But at this stage, other than telling students to get jabbed, there is no priority access. Year 12 student Nathan Guinan was lucky enough to secure a slot, but says there's fear within the school community of an outbreak during exams.
There should be a priority queue for VC students. With our exam, almost 5 weeks away, 6 weeks away, it's really, really crucial that we get our kids vaccinated.
We get this big, shiny announcement from the government, but little on detail and little on the plan on how it's going to be rolled out.
Victoria recorded 45 new cases today. Many of those are essential workers in sectors like construction and healthcare. Authorities say it's alarming some people are still waiting to get tested despite having symptoms.
Some of the recent cases that I've mentioned haven't been tested for 7 or 8 days.
With nearly 1,000 healthcare workers forced into isolation across Melbourne and Shepparton, the Health Department will fly in 350 international medical staff, mainly doctors, to help with staff shortages. The AMA also wants a rethink about how to isolate staff when lockdown ends.
It's just not tenable for staff to be furloughed at home for a couple of weeks, even though they're vaccinated, every time they're exposed to COVID, if Australia's in this position of living with COVID.
The overseas recruits will begin work across 30 health services by October. Bridget Rollison, ABC News, Melbourne.
The Victorian Government is urging all Year 12 students to book in before their October exams. Annie Kearney is outside a vaccination hub at the Royal Exhibition Building in Melbourne. Annie, how busy has it been?
Good evening, Karina. It has been incredibly busy today. We've seen unprecedented demand for vaccine bookings, but also record numbers yesterday of people getting tested, which we expect would have again happened today. To put it in some perspective, 1.3 million calls were made to the hotline this morning, and the online booking portal received about 50,000 hits a minute. Of those, obviously not everyone was able to get through, but we know from this morning till about 5 p.m. that more than 100,000 people were able to make bookings, and we saw long queues at a lot of the hubs, including here at the Royal Exhibition Building, with lots of young people very excited to be able to finally get the jab.
And there's a further expansion of the rollout on the cards. Who's next in line?
Yeah, that's right, Karina. The Victorian Education Minister, James Merlino, said this morning that he's hoping to see 12 to 15-year-olds as next in line. He'd like to see them have 1 dose of the vaccine by the end of the year. He said that this morning. A little later, we heard from Prime Minister Scott Morrison saying that that's definitely on the cards. It's being looked at by the committee that looks at vaccine eligibility, and that the National Cabinet will then look into it. But planning is already underway for that to happen by the end of the school year.
Annie, another hospital has been exposed to the virus. What more can you tell us about that?
Karina, we've only just found that out a short time ago. Monash Medical Centre's emergency department is a new exposure site. A patient visited there while infectious. It was between 3:20 p.m. and 6:30 on Saturday the 21st. Some areas of the hospital are now Tier 1 exposure sites, some are Tier 2. 3 staff members have been identified as close contacts and will now need to isolate for 14 days. Karina, the good news is that so far no other staff have been identified as close contacts because they were all wearing PPE.
Okay, Annie Kearney there with the latest.